Hmm. Well, hello, creatives, community, kind folks, and we cannot forget ourselves, some classmates and collegiates. Uh, Thank you for joining me at RPG with DBJ. We are live streaming on YouTube, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, each day, Monday through Friday, or at least as close as I can get to. We are also streaming the audio through the basement over at Fantasy Grounds College in the Discord. So just go over to the side, join Fantasy Grounds College Discord, slide down to the boiler room, and you will see us down there engaging in a lot of things that maybe should be left unknown. But go over there, and if you wish to participate, absolutely, positively join in the chat on YouTube, and or please go over to if you join the Discord, you can type in other things and leave chat messages there as well. Some may prefer the audio over at Discord, as well as being able to post links and use a few more characters than you could over on YouTube. So that way, and this is the first time. This is the first time even the long-term members that have been with me for a very long time, participating in these demi-daily deep dives. I have figured out a way to bring recordings of this over to SoundCloud. So I have a SoundCloud account. It is there's literally just one audio file. I've been overnight. I've been uploading, downloading, whatever. Anyway, I've been downloading a number of files. So these chats, these hour-ish things will be available on audio as a podcast. Now, at the moment, I can't promise that these live streams will be going up like immediately, like right when they're done. Just physically not possible. But what I'll do is over the weekend, I will upload whatever theme we had and upload them as a bundle, because I can run them overnight. It takes a little bit of time when you have hour-long files and such. So yes, there will be a link into the SoundCloud into the SoundCloud account down below. I'll be doing that this weekend as well. So yes, these chats will be going. I will be podcasting them as it were. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, I was there are a number of ways to rip the audio from our live chats and post them up, but I needed it to be quicker and stable. And I know my audio isn't it isn't the greatest. And then having it go from place to place to place, I didn't want to lose any of that as well. I'm no audiophile, so that was an issue as well. So yes, there's going to be a SoundCloud, and I wanted something simple as well. So all right, now that that's out of the way, what's today's topic? Well, today's topic is part of the theme that we run all week, for those who don't know. So we picked the theme this week of mysteries, very generally mysteries, when it comes to deception and lies and just the unknown or the unrevealed disguises, that kind of thing. And today is Third Pillar Thursday. I love myself some Third Pillar Thursday because it pertains to the third pillar of tabletop gaming. The third pillar represents exploration, with combat and social interactions representing the first and second pillar. So the third pillar, exploration, I have even extrapolated even further into representing the hazards and the exotic locations that we go to, not just uncovering information and reading glyphs and runes off of walls, or trudging through swamps, or going through a mountain pass, but it's the hazards that happen when combat ensues. Oh man, dead man bringing us all down. I joke. I'm being sarcastic because before we started, I usually begin the audio in the Fantasy Grounds College Discord, and we were talking about Spaceballs 2 and just how much it's finding out like you put your shoe on and like a slug like snuck into the bottom of your shoe. It's like it's this nasty feeling like, oh, please don't. Ah, I can't get it off of me. But of course, Dead Man always brings the knowledge, so I love that. Now, the today, how do we incorporate exploration and mystery? Now, one of the larger things I wanted to really emphasize in our live chats is embracing mystery, embracing the unknown, embracing the idea that there are some answers us as world creators and players should just accept as not knowing the answer to. That, yeah, there are side effects, and maybe those things would have some gameable effects, some predictable effects, some uncoverable effects. But in general, maybe there's some things that we just don't know. So when it comes to third pillaring, when it comes to exploration, I feel like maybe we can play with the unknown, play with the idea that there are elements that have maybe a strange or bizarre or unexpected result. So now I'm going to bring up Planescape. I'm going to bring up like a game setting, a world in which the laws of physics, the laws of reality don't operate anymore. And I also would think that the Feywild and the Shadowfell fall into this category, as well as others. When it comes to mystery and exploration, maybe what we expect to happen doesn't really happen. When players come across a wall of fire and it's red and it's blazing, and they place their hand in it when it's ice cold, is that something they expect to happen? Maybe not. If there is a classic pit trap and they walk close to it and the door falls open and someone falls into it, they don't expect someone to say fall from a gap in the ceiling and continue falling through the pit trap to fall through the ceiling in this infinitely um, teleporting circle of portals where they fall through the bottom of the pit and then reappear at the top. One of the classic traps, although we've imagined it before, but one of the classic traps in Tomb of Horrors, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Tomb of Horrors. I believe if the players remain still enough, they will see bones and old equipment, rotted clothing, and rusted equipment falling forever in this pit trap, if I'm not mistaken. But we could also play with time and space as well. The idea of someone going into a forested glen and time has transpired in a different rate than those on the outside, as well as changing space, walking through a cavern that transports them to another time and space, whether it's another dimension or transports them into another area, whether there's a pocket dimension or what have you. I think the mystery in Third Pillar, I believe, adds to that as well. And there may be clues that the PCs can pick up either from their adversaries. Maybe there's an adversary that's out of time or out of place. The PCs come across, shadow demons and regular old shadows and shadow dragons. It kind of points to going maybe into the Shadowfell and having the world turn upside down as they go there, as well as, maybe the world itself literally turns upside down. So in general, I think we can play in terms of third pillaring. I think we could play with that. Now, you guys know that my definition of the third pillar and especially a cinematic environment is one where we combine many of the aspects, even all of the aspects of like layers and traps and obstacles and weather events and man-made creations, and all the above, all added together in this hodgepodge of coolness. And we can, I mean, just using the idea of reskinning things, I think we can go really far with it, or even have things that are unexplained. For example, while it's very cool for players, a player character to have the ability to Misty Step, what if that happens unexpectedly when someone steps into, again, let's go to the forested glen. If someone steps around a tree, or steps into the mist of fog, or mist that shrouds this forested area, and maybe it's a haven for fey creatures, and a player unexpectedly misty steps when they're trying to maybe close in on an adversary, or sneak around a tree to hide from, I don't know, the satyrs or the ogres or the centaurs that live in this area, to have strange and bizarre things happen to them. Maybe a form of obstacle or trap happens where someone disappears out of reality for a couple of rounds, and maybe roll a die 6 or something, and they fail to recognize or move away or step out of the way, or of this trap that makes them literally disappear out of reality, only to appear 3 rounds later with no explanation. And while may be no explanation for why they disappeared, but the PCs understand that, oh, if you're the minute you're unseen, you are literally you wink out of existence, right? There's also the idea of, again, adding this to maybe some of your adversaries and creatures as well, meaning that there could be something happens that triggers maybe a horde of creatures to come out of a portal or whatnot, but there may be something strange, like the PCs must, if they ring a bell or hold up a holy symbol or close their eyes. Remember, as kids, if you the idea that if you closed your eyes, that you would become invisible to maybe an enemy or an adversary, that there might be this is the other end of the idea of using what we talked about the other week, about using folklore in terms of solving using weaknesses of creatures against them. This is the other end of that, where in the environment we can use certain things, like certain folklore elements, whether it's reciting a song, or clapping your hands, or closing your eyes, or snapping your fingers or something, right? There could be a folklore-ish type of method to get past these strange mystical obstacles. And of course, let's go down to our basics, right? There are, you've got spring traps, pit traps, statues that breathe fire, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we can absolutely positively take those things and change their damage sources. What an easy way to reskin something. Necrotic damage, thunder damage, lightning damage, or what have you. Or maybe all of the above. Hey, roll a d8 and write down a list of what kind of randomized damage that could happen, especially if you are running a game in which chaos has reigned supreme in all of its methods, right? And again, mystery. Maybe you've already foreshadowed that they've gone into a mysterious realm. For example, each day a different sun rises in the sky. I know Dark Sun doesn't necessarily really have a dark sun, but it's possible that a certain sun or stars or planetary or celestial events happen in the sky at a particular time of day, or each day something changes, and those celestial events could have certain names. Oh, the blooded moon, is in the sky along with the 2 dark stars, or whatever. And that could give a clue, a mystery, as to some of the elemental effects that happen in the world. So maybe, just maybe, when the players come across lethal looking plants, or animals that have something seething in their eyes, or random bolts of lightning strike from the sky when it rains or something. Maybe that applies to, say, a damage type or damage class. So maybe bolts of lightning are necrotic because the three dark stars are in the sky, as well as um, many of the creatures now may have like poison associated with some of their one or more of their damages because of the blood moon or something like that, or whatever the case may be. And of course, mixing and matching all of that. Now, there may be other elements, much like stealing something from, say, Indiana Jones or the National Treasure movies, where through exploration and uncovering some of the mysteries and things that don't make sense, at least to the PCs, it makes sense to the world in general. So, for example, if there's some kind of time or space fluctuation going on where the PCs are in a realm where it's a possibility that one or more of them may be trapped somewhere where they age in any number of directions, forwards or backwards. Maybe they age older and their physical stats start to deteriorate, as well as maybe a trade-off that their mental stats go up. I know that there really isn't a correlation that way, but sure, maybe the trap itself is, for every when they step into a region, if they fail a save or if they're there too long, that one of their physical stats drops by a die 4, but one of their mental stats increases by a die 4 as well, and represented by their bodies aging. And of course, some of the longer lived races may not be affected by it as much as maybe your older races. Infinite Roleplay says Bizarro Land. Of course. I was going to go, okay, let's go there now. Talking about a Bizarro Land, or famed notable artist MC Escher with the infinite stairs that you walk up in the infinite square, walking up on ceilings, gravity shifts around. I mean, we can play with so much of that. And for those who are fans of Planescape, and I believe you can get it on PDF now. I mean, the original Planescape, the 3rd edition. Come on, Deadman. Please remind me. I believe it like 2.75 or 3.0 era or whatever. Anyway, during that era of Planescape, each of the planes operated by its own laws, and very much so. I think, hey, in your own realm, your own world, either going from different dimensions, or maybe there are different regions of your own world, especially if the gods did battle and wanted to have their own say in the world. Maybe there are different islands or continents or regions where there are different laws of nature. Yeah, Rickard says, isn't it 3rd edition or even 3.5? Might might we be well off though before my D&D time? Yeah, Deadman says 2nd edition AD&D started Planescape. I thought it was pretty early. It's been around that long. I remembered it being pretty early. That was when they had a glut of settings, for good or bad. Dark Sun, Planescape, and Spelljammer came out kind of around that time. Yep. Yeah. If the role play says, yeah, Planescape's been around since then. Yeah, it sure has. But yeah, it's this idea of playing with the laws of nature. Now, of course, the PCs, once they're introduced to it, may have zero idea what those laws of nature are, but they can uncover how the laws of nature operate. For example, I believe in the astral plane, movement is not based on your physical ability to run, but your ability to move through intelligence. So it's possible that you could do something where the PCs are dropped into a dream realm. And so instead of using strength, dex, and constitution as your statistics, maybe they are instead replaced by intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, respectively, right? A mental realm or psychic realm or something. Maybe the 18 intelligence wizard now in this realm is translated as having an 18 intelligence, as having an 18 strength in a dream realm, right? So we could very much play with and modify the rules, the gamify rules in our world to overlay the the idea that the world is not operating how you think it operates, but if you uncover certain clues, you will find out how it operates. Yeah, Rickard says, yeah, it seems it was even dropped when 3E hit. I think it was. And it went through those cycles where something new comes out, everyone likes it, and then it takes a big dip, usually because the the brand new and shiny comes along, and those who were very much committed to Planescape held on to it, even as it went through like 30, 3.5, 3.75 slash Pathfinder. Same thing that happened with Eberron, same thing happened with Dark Sun, that people held on to it tightly, and it became its own genre of sorts. And why not grab on or hold on to those aspects that people loved about it? There was the great thing about Planescape was there was always something new about it. There was always a way to challenge how the players operate in the world. I mean, if you go to the elemental plane of water and you're dropped into a place that literally is an infinite expanse of water, mind you, each of the planes had their own islands, and I use that loosely. They had their own exotic locations where maybe the PCs could survive as humanoids, air-breathing humanoids in a vast, strange realm. But again, preparing to have to breathe in an infinite dimension of being underwater itself is a hazard and mysterious in its way, especially if the PCs are dropped into these realms randomly by some force. Now, of course, you don't want to, as a game master, you don't want to do the because we mentioned this before. Don't do a gotcha. Don't do a ha ha. You're dead because you didn't notice this thing, and it's like, you don't want to do that. You want to give them a challenge, and sure, dropping them into the elemental plane of water may cause them to drown unless something comes along and they find an air pocket, maybe a guide or some enemies or what have you. And then the PCs learn like, oh no, we are literally surrounded by an infinite expanse of water, and just this one little air bubble is going to help us. We're going to have to find a way to survive, and then of course you get the opportunity to use some of those so-called unused skills. For example, if you go to a plane that's made up of nothing but the inner workings and organs of a hugely giant slain monster or one of decomposing god or something like that, maybe a medicine skill will help you navigate. Like, I think we're in the liver. We need to find the spleen and gather some, or get some stomach acid. Or hey, I know the way to escape. We need to weave our way through the intestines and get expelled out the bladder or something, right? I mean, I'm being rather sarcastic with that one, but the idea of traveling in a dimension of nothing but the inner organs of a vast creature is a thing. That really is a thing. There have been a number of adventures. I believe one of the planes of the Nine Hells is made up that way, as well as I think Dungeon World has an adventure with like a continent-sized worm that has dungeons inside of it or something like that. Yeah, Deadman says 3E made it much more actual that mental attributes were used instead of the physical attributes on the astral plane. And to extrapolate on what Deadman, the storyteller, said, that depending on when you came into, say, Dungeons and Dragons or any other game, you may or may not have access to some of these rules or rulings or modifications. And so sometimes there's this logical step forward into something, and you would not be wrong into assuming if you never knew that existed and you go, you know what, I think it would be cool to have the mental attributes replace the physical ones. You can say, yeah, of course you can do that. Um, uh, as well as the fact that maybe there's a realm, of chaos or things change. So you can you can change statistics in terms of overcoming or resisting certain events. So, for example, um, a world filled with your own nightmares might have a physical component to it, being ravaged or falling or uh, being being sliced, having your flesh flayed open by your own guilt and nightmares and things. And so instead of a, say, strength attribute to resist being chained or a constitution save to resist being infected, maybe you're using more intelligence or wisdom or even charisma to overcome physical threats, as it were, depending on where you're located. So that as well. And of course, narratively, you can explain some of these things, like, for example, uh, being placed in a maze, an infinite maze. The only way to get out might be through intelligence checks or being assaulted by illusions and a cacophony of blasted images of all types. You see storm clouds and mountains and wild dogs and flame, and then you're falling. No, you're being attacked by blades. It's fire. No, it's complete darkness. No, you're falling from the sky. Like it could just be one image after another, and maybe the only way to navigate that is through like a wisdom, like using your instincts, using your perceptions to look beyond the physical things you feel and see. Charisma saves could be based on talking to and convincing literally the living world around you to avoid harm to you. Maybe there are ravaged ghosts. They're not even ghosts as in creatures, but they're just the the remnants, the flayed emotions of people that have been wrought through pain and such, and all they want to do is cause harm and flay your flesh or drive you insane or grab your limbs and pull you down into hell or something like that. And maybe it's a matter of not just convincing them, but convincing yourself that they should leave you alone, convincing them that you belong here, or that you truly are walking on a path of atonement, or that within you is an evil greater than they are, or something. And you don't really see too many charisma saves in Dungeons and Dragons, not too many. So this might be a way to pull at that. And of course, my point in stressing that is you can shift the spotlight around, or I hate to say this because I know some players out there would be pissed off, but go after, along with allowing the players to express their strengths, go after their weaknesses. The barbarian dealing out hundreds of points of damage per hit might not be too effective in a dream realm of nightmares where they must use their intelligence and wisdom and charisma to navigate this strange world. Now, bringing it back down to earth a little bit, instead of jumping to other planes, there's also the idea that exploring our own world, whether through hazards, whether it's going into deep caves or swamps or deserts and the places unknown, along with places that are known, factories and forges and foundries, warehouses, sewers, running across rooftops, navigating streets and things like that. Yeah. Deadman says in second edition had psionics that were based on charisma. See, again, something that's already been touched on in previous editions and thought of, maybe dropped a little bit, but you could bring those things back as well. If there isn't or you do not own a psionic handbook, you could very well, in your own gaming world, just replace one statistic for another, right? You could very well say, oh, by the way, in my world, there is a use the sorcerer or wizard class and just call it psionicist and just change it over to charisma and just reflavor, reskin some options or something. Make a spell list that's made up of that's not restricted to only wizard things. Just go through all the spells. Pick a, I don't know, 10 cantrips from the entire cantrip list, all that kind of stuff. Infinite says no egoism. I remember the id, ego, and super ego from the appendix from the player's handbook from second edition AD&D. I remember that. The ego whip and ID, the id insinuation, and I can't remember all of it, but it was fun. It was a different way of looking at it. It was like a little mini game unto itself, kind of broken as well. They didn't understand game balance at that time, and I think there was only like a 2% chance max, I believe, that any player character, maybe 3% chance that any player character could get psionics, and then of course later on, everybody's got psionics. Everybody's got it. Yeah. Oh man. But all right, so along with the natural environment as well, there are mysteries to be uncovered. I mean, in our own world itself, yeah. I don't remember the psionic cards at all. Psionic cards. That's beyond me, and I'm an old dude. I think it was because I just wasn't exposed to them. But in our own world, there are things that are back in AD&D, psionic cards. No, don't remember it at all. But in our own world, there are things that we're still trying to uncover. For example, today they're still uncovering life forms that are in the deep ocean. There are places in our own world that, although radar and people have tried to travel to some exotic locations, those places are still okay. Those places are still hard to get to. Yeah, Dead Man's like psionic cards were a supplement. Yeah, I get that. Like similar to spell cards, I'm sure, with each of their functions and ranges and things like that. Yeah, I it's just a pet peeve of mine, just because of the idea that psionics is somehow this other thing other than magic in Dungeons and Dragons, when it's just those are just words to me. But I don't know, to each their own. I think it's just because it's classic. It was always this other thing that applied by these other rules with this other system, but I don't think it's necessary. But anyway, that's and mind you, that's just me. I think that leaving yourself open to leaving mysteries in your world, whether it's the mystery of where something comes from, or how the weather operates, or things in the world that maybe shouldn't be there. I mean, we mentioned this the other day about the fact that a mysterious keep or a mysterious monolith or something left from an age or a civilization that fell many eons ago, we accept that because it's further away from us both in time, and sometimes it might just be further away from us in space as well. I'm traveling to this place that takes me 3 months sailing time to get to it. All right, well, I kind of accept the fact that it's far away, but you could even embrace that where maybe a vast metropolis, a vast city was built over the ruins or built within the ruins of an ancient civilization where the walls are made up of, I don't know, a stone that is like pink and violet and purple. And if one were to concentrate just enough, you can walk into the walls, and the walls themselves are like an extra dimensional space or something. And this metropolis-like city is built on the ruins of this place where there are some strange events happening. I could see it. I could imagine that happening. Just as people accept the fact that there are biological, half fiends, tieflings living in the world, and dragonborn maybe living in your world. I don't think it goes too far to say that there might be ancient ruins and things left from other ancient civilizations or parts of the world that may not operate in the way we think they do, but they are like a waterfall that's flowing the opposite direction, or strange storm clouds that are scintillating in colors, that rain down, acid rain and lightning that's got I don't know, bolts of black necrotic energy that come down in your world randomly, and and maybe these events are called something by the people, and they are, if not used to it, um, there are some predictions. They are prepared, maybe even in small ways, that this thing might happen in the world, and so it's a possibility that there are that these events happen in your world where the PCs can uncover or maybe are exposed to some of the mysteries, or it might not even be explained at all, or explained vaguely. Oh, um, those are the god storms or something like that, when the gods did battle years ago, and that's all explanation you need. And then the PCs, when they're traveling out into the wilderness, leaving some of your city states, that once they leave the city states, they realize that, oh, it is pretty dangerous out here. No wonder the people stay behind the city state walls, or when the sun goes down, the gates are locked because when it rains, instead of frogs raining from the sky, that growing out of the muck and the mire are like trolls or something like that. Deadman puts into the Discord chat a review of the psionic power cards over at rpg.net. Okay, cool. Yeah, what are some other mysterious things? Oh, the idea of uncovering if you have something mysterious, you could also gift the players with the ability to navigate the mystery that might not be a physical navigation, right? For example, uh, a parallel to gifting your players maybe potions or scrolls or something like that. Something I love about the game Numenera is that they have things known as ciphers, and ciphers are these somewhat randomized bits of detritus, like equipment, whether it's broken. They are devices and other things that are gathered from in this strange world, the ninth world, and they're like one-time use objects of sorts. And those objects could be very generalized, right? They could be the tears of sorrow from, I don't know, a dragon or something like that, or they could be a chunk of equipment from a broken machine that was 8 miles long or something, and the only thing left is something you can hold in your hand. So you could also offer bits and pieces of knowledge or whatnot, and they could operate as a parallel to magic items. So, for example, maybe the fighter learns the answer to, or knows a certain riddle or a haiku or a poem that is able to part the lethal forest in front of them, and by uncovering that, they're able to go past the poison thorned plants and man-eating foliage or something that could attack them or whatnot. Maybe the bard learns a song that is able to soothe a horde of savage beasts. Maybe the sorcerer learns to unlock one of their abilities to tap into their demonic or draconic heritage or something that allows them to overcome in some small way. Maybe it doesn't allow them to overcome it completely, but maybe gives them advantage on certain rolls or a particular save, or allows them to do something like that way. Something else you can also pull on are the schools of spells, um, schools of necromancy or evocation or abjuration. Maybe depending on your world, those are increased and or decreased based on I mentioned at the top, maybe celestial events or the gods or an ancient civilization, or maybe it's just random. So maybe evocation spells are far more powerful, but abjuration spells are decreased in this world. So maybe their durations and effects are halved, while the evocation spells are increased by 50% while they are here. Um, Easily explained, maybe if the PCs go into a wizard's tower, and the ancient wizards that had this tower would have their experiments, and depending on what wing of this um, massive psionics, geez, this massive tower of wizards and studiers of arcane lore. Maybe there's a wing dedicated to psionics, and another one dedicated to enchantment, and yet a third one dedicated to mastery of illusion. And then going into that wing, some spells might be heightened, and some might be pacified. So the wing of illusions, maybe the illusions are not only more powerful, but might become real. Whereas the ability to detect those illusions are mitigated, or maybe non-effective or something, maybe based on level, or the level of the spell cast. So maybe third level spells and below are useless in uncovering these illusions. It could be based on level of PCs, third level or below. You're not going to be able to use any of your spells to uncover what's illusionary or not. Maybe it's just, using the very simple but effective advantage, disadvantage, and so on and so forth, right? There, you can play with the mysteries, and it could be finding a clue in one location in your world through exploration gives them a way to navigate another part of the world. So again, going with the idea of the wizards, if you go into the evocation wizards realm, maybe they find a device or uncover some runes or something like that allows them to maybe far more easily navigate the illusionist wing of this tower. As an example of using the exploration, the third pillar of gaming, and rewarding your players for diving deep into it. Now, again, for me, the third pillar part of it is about the obstacles that you have to navigate, and the traps, meaning not just having a fight with an adversary, but having a fight with an adversary on the skin of a giant zeppelin, or on a rising platform on a crane, lifting high into the air, or fighting on a storm, fighting on the docks with storm waves rolling in, and the brackish waves sweeping over the docks, and being swept out to sea if you lose your footing or something. Well, the same thing can be done when it comes to mysterious events, meaning that there could be people that have locked themselves away at night, and the PCs come into town, and they don't understand what's going on when all the people are just locking their doors. And there could be ghosts, or nightmarish images, or strange gases, or fog that sweeps through the town, and the effects that happen to them might not be ones that the PCs are used to. So the gas might not be poisonous. It might be polymorphic. It might change the PCs into a frog, or what have you, or turn them to stone, or shrink them down, or I don't know, turn their skin invisible so that their muscles are seen from the outside. I don't know, any number of events or effects could happen, as well as more narrative effects as well, depending on when the PCs go into another realm or another part of the world. Maybe there's a physical change that happens to them. Maybe their skin color changes, their hair grows, their eyes change color. Um, I hate body horror, so maybe they grow an extra eyeball or two somewhere on their body, or an extra mouth opens up, or they grow an extra hand off of their shoulder, or whatnot. And by staying here too long or using certain spells or spell-like effects, they end up uncovering and realizing that, yeah, we can use these abilities, but here, we're gonna have some pretty nasty pretty nasty, nasty effects. Yeah, fat ninjas like spectral farts. Exactly. There is a Netflix movie known as Spectral. It's kind of faded into the background now, but that's a perfect example of lethal dangers that are uncovered. It is science fiction. I was thinking of bringing this up on Future Friday, and we'll bring it up again. But long story short, yes, it's a spoiler, whatever. If you haven't seen it now, you're not going to go see it. But the special effects are really good, especially when it gets to the end of the flick. It's very good. Dead Man brings up Ravenloft. Ravenloft is a perfect example as well of having. It's like Infinite Roleplay says Spectral was good. Yeah, and Fat Ninja says still a good movie though. I agree. I don't know if it was worthy of a theatrical release, but Netflix was a perfect place for it. So long story short of Spectral was it takes place in today's time, maybe a little bit in the future, a little bit of high tech going on, and in a particular war-torn realm, there are these basically spectral spectral individuals that are running around. They're like ghosts, and once you're touched by them, you're dead. You touched by these ghosts, you're dead. And mind you, there were enough NPCs for the specters, the spectral images to kill them. But long story short, you get touched by them, you're dead. And the movie is about the scientists uncovering what happened. So they uncover during it. There's one thing happens a little bit during the movie. They uncover the fact that a certain type of element, the specters are unable to penetrate, so they can use that as a defense. They understand that they're being drawn to the life forces of the human beings, so they understand that if they hide behind this, they could dodge their perceptions. And then they discover that there's a certain energy wavelength, and we could trap them or disperse them. And then, of course, you find out at the very end what it is that created the specters in the first place. But it very much was a procedural type of thing, and incorporating that into our games where there could be something very lethal, some type of ghostly creatures that are not necessarily monsters, although they could be monsters with stat blocks. They could be an elemental affecting your world. The necrotic lightning I brought up before that strikes down, and maybe there's some way of finding out why it's happening, where it's happening, defending the people that it's happening to. And as the players gain more knowledge, i.e. going up in levels, they might be able to even confront what it is that's causing it, even if it is a remnant of the great war of the gods or something. And Rickard says, so like that Final Fantasy movie then? Yes, I would say similar to that. Yes, Spectral was it. It was. I'd give it a 7. Yeah, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. Yeah, I haven't seen that so long. And it was ahead of its time, too. I think it was ahead of its time. I believe had that movie come out later, we would be looking at more completely CGI movies, animated movies, like the excuse me, like the cutscenes from video games or something. But whatever the case may be, the flowing into something such as deceptions and untruths and disguise and such. Yeah, like Beowulf. I think Beowulf was far better than I think it needed to be, even though it did have a little bit or quite a bit of that uncanny valley to it. Uh, yeah. Yeah, Ricker says, had that movie not been called Final Fantasy, it would have helped as well. Yeah, because it didn't have anything to do with the 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 video game version of it. But like most marketing, they try to steal the name, so there's an identity to it, which is why they that's why they do it. It's just marketing. It's if they named it something, if it just said Spirits Within, it wouldn't have made half the money it did. It wouldn't have been as successful as the Final Fantasy Spirits Within would have been, even if someone considered that it hadn't been successful at all, right? But there's also the idea that there are obstacles and hazards that others might want to deceive people into thinking they're one thing, but it's really something else. So, for example, of the most basic deception you have is covering up a pit trap, right? So there's a pit, you don't want to fall in a pit, but you cover it up with foliage in the woods, and it's just a natural pit that you can't see because of the natural landscape, or it's a man-made pit in a dungeon with a hatch that pops open, or it is a man-made pit in the wild that's covered over with foliage and twigs and such. It is a concerted effort to disguise and to deceive people that there is a hazard. And so therefore, there's also the idea that maybe the world in which the players are in is hazardous, but they can uncover the deceptions that are covering up the hazards and obstacles in the first place. So an example would be a wizard or an alchemist has vats filled with oozes, right? And you have yourself a vat of black pudding and a vat of gelatinous sludge and a vat of ochre jelly and another vat of gray ooze, and they're using these things, and maybe, just maybe, the some of the adversaries the PCs are going after before they maybe some of the adversaries the PCs are going after are using some of these alchemical mixtures, and one thing leads to another. The PCs may put two and two together and go, well, they're throwing these jars of acid at us. That's pretty nasty. I wonder where they're getting it from. Oh, that's why they have this thing, right? So instead of because the PCs may question, like, I've never heard of acid that does that, or I've never heard of a thing that does this thing that does this thing. And then you end up finding out maybe the PCs, later on it's revealed, oh, they're taking the oozes and putting them into smaller jars, and they're carrying it with them, and such. So it could be that things are revealed to the players, but not in the manner in which they're used to. And then as more information is uncovered, someone is like, oh, that's what's going on. For example, a powerful noble might have some great magical abilities, and the PCs can't put their finger on it, but come to find out that the nobles have made a deal with some kind of fey spirits or sprites that are acting in the background, making it look like they have these abilities, but they really don't. The same could be done for a hag or naga or sphinxes. I love pulling those creatures out. You guys know me. I love those middling creatures. I love lieutenant creatures, right? The Rakshasa that shape changes, and the Rakshasa is an NPC that might have that is a shopkeeper or a mayor or a constable or something in this town that's like on the edge of the wilderness or something, and they're like, this person's acting a little strange and I don't know what they're up to, and then uncovering the fact that, oh, it's the shape change dragon, right? The shape change dragon is still a dragon that with access to most, if not all, of their abilities. But once someone realizes that they are a dragon, they're exposed, then everything clicks together and you go, oh, that's why they were that way. Also, someone could be, I once had the idea of the typical goblinoid horde, the idea of, the vast army, and I wanted to do a twist on it, and I had the goblinoid horde. I was pretending as if they were adventurers themselves. So there was like an adventure where there was like an orc and a troll and a bugbear and a couple of goblins and a few hobgoblins, and like they were going on adventures themselves, like an adventuring group, and they gathered certain like magic items and cursed items and things. But mind you, this was my own headcanon, right? This all happened previous to the onslaught, which they were going to, of course, take over a certain countryside. And I had it where they had a couple of potions, where one had like a potion of invisibility and another one had something like a wand of polymorph or whatever. And they were using it to infiltrate humanity. And I was describing things that the players thought were happening. They thought there were ghosts. They thought there was like a league of assassins. And they were putting all these things, trying to put two and two together. But really what was happening is they were using like magic items, and they were using deals that they made with other monsters in their bid to take over the humanoid lands and such. And at one point I even had opened up a story where one had a tiara that increased their intelligence. Another had a manual that they were reading that was like an ogre had a manual that was increasing their intelligence. I think I had like a bugbear that had a tiara on their head. And then I think a third one had I think it's pronounced ion stone. Ion stone. Ion stone? I don't know. I'm butchering the pronunciation. Anyway, one of them had a stone that was revolving around their head that increased their intelligence. And they brought a wagon into town that was filled with the bodies of their dead children and pregnant, goblinoids. Yeah, got it the second time. Now, don't tell me that. now in my head, I'm like, which was the second one? Let me go and butcher it all over again. But anyway, also, I know there's a pronunciation guide, but to be honest, like, is there a real pronunciation? Is there really a pronunciation for things that don't exist? You know what I mean? And besides that, I think that's the fun of role-playing, the role-playing tabletop community, us having our tabletop arguments over how something that doesn't exist in the real world should be pronounced, Rickard says, you say that, but most of the names come from real names. And despite that, we still have different pronunciations of things. Aluminum versus aluminium, right? That's the letter Z versus Z. Language differentiations and cultural differentiations also have us pronounce different things. And I guarantee you, both you and I on different, halfway around the world pronounce things differently, and neither one of us are wrong. Or no, I'd say pretty much we're wrong. Not only that, but a lot of us bastardize things until the bastardization of the pronunciation becomes the real thing. So there's a little bit of that as well. But again, and also anybody remember Star Trek, right? Data versus data. Lady calls data, and she's like, well, what's the difference? And he's like, well, one's my name, one isn't, so, Asmodeus and Asmodeus are two different pronunciations. One of them is his name. The other one gets you killed, right? But I'm being very facetious with it. But anyway, guys, we've come to the hour mark. I just want to. Rickard says, but in the terms of the Rakshasa is from Hindu, so I would argue that the Hindu pronunciation of Rakshasa is probably the correct one, which I probably just ruin that. And I'm going to agree with you. I believe the the Hindi version of Rakshasa would be the correct one, unless you have not been exposed to it. In which case, does that make you wrong for not having the knowledge? Not really, until you're exposed to it. And yeah, I'm with you. Rickard says, that said, I have no idea how to pronounce it. You know what? It's like what's the creature? I'm going to butcher it. Coatl, the winged, the good aligned winged serpent, I believe, pulled from the Aztec mythology. Again, something I don't know how to pronounce. And so you're again, I was being facetious. You're absolutely correct that a lot of especially the mythological creatures and monsters and some of their mythological effects are pulled from the cultures in which they're from, and then they're borrowed and modified quite heavily. And so, yeah, I would say that the Boule, no. They specifically did that on purpose. So yeah, Ricker says, it's like, I'm probably butchering the name, but until someone tells me how it's pronounced, I won't change it, unless it's Lich, in which case I refuse to change the way I pronounce it anyway. In which, is it Lick? Lich? Lick? Yeah, it's a Lich to me. Sometimes I find certain pronunciations are narratively good. Love you, baby. Yeah. Yeah, Rickard says, yes, lick. Yeah, see, sometimes I prefer the dramatic pronunciation. You know, I prefer Dead Man puts in Rakshasas from Wikipedia, and right in the beginning of it, I don't want to pop out of it. It'll tell you the pronunciations into it. Yeah, Rickard says, no, just know it'll always be Lich to me. Yeah, me too. Sometimes I like to pronounce things like the arrogant way, the mysterious way, the way that makes it seem maybe nefarious or something. I find like the dark Lich it sounds a little more insidious than the shadowy Lick. You know, it just doesn't have that. Whether it's correct or not, it just doesn't have that meat to it, you know? Sometimes you have to have, like Asmodeus to me sounds better than Asmodeus. Asmodeus. I don't know. Maybe Mephistopheles. There's just certain, I don't know. There's just certain pronunciations and certain things. You know, the Rakshasa to me just sounds, that pronunciation of it just sounds right to me in terms of coming across as something that you don't want to mess with, that's unknown, it's hiding in the shadows and stuff. Anyway, I say these things and I'm probably butchering it for the people that maybe those things are in existence in their own culture. And I don't mean to do that to be rude. I mean to do that to be dramatic. So sure, there's probably a particular way. I just feel like that's an element of our tabletop role-playing community that is a thing that I don't think they should have. It was a problem that didn't need to be fixed, even if it was a problem. You know, is it Dro or Drow? The answer is yes. You know, is it Ogre or Ogre? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Dwygar, you know, Rickard says, I always find the Dwygar to be funny when people pronounce it. The Sverfneblin? Yeah. I believe I've heard the Watsi people pronounce it Dwygar, and I'm just like, it's Durgar to me. D-U-D-E-R-R gar, and I added an extra syllable in there just to be cool, right? Anyway, guys, again, to let you guys know, not only are we going live on live streaming on YouTube, we also are live on audio wise in Fantasy Grounds College Discord. Of course, pop over to Fantasy Grounds College if you wish to learn how to, use Fantasy Grounds. Go down into the boiler room and you will see us hanging out down there if you use the slider on the left. Also, look forward to, because this weekend I'll probably have about 6 or 7 episodes up. These live streams will be going audio, and I will be starting to promote the podcast version of this. Now, I'm not exactly sure how good of a podcast it is. I mean, I am a talking head, and some people might find my dulcet tones a little bit disconcerting. But that being said, there will be a podcast version of these available on SoundCloud probably by the end of this weekend, and I'll put them up like Monday as well. So look forward to that. So I don't know. I'm trying not to spread myself too thin, but I do want to be able to reach as many people as possible. So guys, look forward to that. We have reached the hour mark. I will be saying goodbye. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me. Again, behind me, the mysterious wood. I thought I'd be a little silly with changing the backgrounds up. Although I like my brick. I think the brick's got that color to it. It's got a little bit of snap to it. So that's why I kind of devolved to it. Originally I was going to have a different background for each day appropriate to each theme. Monster Monday, Tips and Tricks, Discord Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, Third Pillar Thursday, and each day would have a different background, but I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, guys, see you guys later. Thank you very much.